going to get into his dad a little bit, Thomas Lincoln. The book is Life of Abraham Lincoln, being a biography of his life from his birth to his assassination, also a record of his ancestors, and a collection of anecdotes attributed to Lincoln. He is the gentlest memory of our nation, it says here, by Clifton M. Nichols, and this is from 1899. A most remarkable and almost inexplicable fact is that, now listen to this, this is Abraham Lincoln's father, all right? We're going to get a clear description of his father. Now it says here, the most remarkable and almost inexplicable fact is that to Thomas Lincoln was reserved the honor of an illustrious paternity. Thomas was about 5 feet 10 inches in height, weighed about 200 pounds, had dark brown eyes, dark skin, and black hair. Thomas Lincoln, again, Abraham Lincoln's dad, dark skin, and black hair. He was always poor and indolent. He was a man of great strength but slow of movement. All right, so again, Abraham Lincoln's dad described as dark skin in this book. It says here, Nancy Hanks was a beautiful girl of pleasant manners and keen intellect. She was slender and symmetrical, above the ordinary height and stature, and had the appearance of one inclined to consumption. She was a brunette. All right, so she was a brunette. What does that mean? With dark hair. All right, so I know brunette, people usually use it for hair color, right? I know that, right? And I'm Kurimeo, but that means hair color. But they're already saying her hair is dark. Why would they say she is a brown hair with dark hair? Why would they say it again? She has dark hair with dark hair. We go to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, right? And it says brunette. Brunette. What does it say? Of a dark brown color. Brunette hair, for example. Having brunette hair. Also having brunette hair. It doesn't just mean brunette hair. It also means a dark brown color. Brunette. A dark brown color. His mom, again, she was a what? A dark brown color with dark hair. Soft hazel eyes, and it had a high intellectual looking forehead. All right, on page 218 of this same book, and it says that right here is the Abraham Lincoln's autobiography. Now it says here, the following autobiography was written by Mr. Lincoln's own hand at the request of J.W. Fell of Springfield, Illinois, December 20th, 1859. In the note which accompanied it, the writer says, now he says right here again, and it's in this book too, it says, if any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said, I am in height 6 feet 4 inches, nearly lean in flesh, weighing on average 180 pounds, dark complexion. He's saying himself, dark complexion, dark complexion. What are you going to say? Hey, Kurimeo, that means pale. Also, dark means pale too. Dark complexion is dark complexion. I don't care what anybody says. They want to show us white images of Abraham Lincoln. They want to say, oh no, he just meant he was a little dark because he's Semitic, or because he might be a little mixed, or because he's whatever they want to try to say. Dark complexion is dark complexion. It's not pale, right? With coarse black hair, dark complexion. That's himself describing himself as that, all right? Another source saying the same thing. All right, we got another source here. This book is called The Everyday Life of Abraham Lincoln, a biography of the great American president from an entirely new standpoint with fresh and invaluable material. Lincoln's life and character portrayed by those who knew him, okay? The primary sources. And it goes on and on. This was written in 1887 by Francis F. Brown. And there's a section here with Lincoln's autobiography, which we are going to read a lot today. It says here, if any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said I am in height 6 feet 4 inches, nearly lean in flesh, weighing on average 180 pounds, dark complexion, with coarse black hair and gray eyes, no other marks or brands recollected. Yours very truly, A. Lincoln. Again, dark complexion, coarse black hair. All right, Lincoln himself letting you know. On page 42 of this book, you have here Lincoln's parents. The father was a rough, illiterate, and thriftless man with peaceful, brave, social, and kindly disposition. He was of short and compact frame, with a dark, coarse hair, gray eyes, brown complexion, and brawny strength, which Abraham inherited. All right, we're going to read how strong Abraham is. Again, his dad is brown complexioned with dark coarse hair. Another source is that is also a so-called black man. The mother was cast in a finer mold, and according to trustworthy accounts, was a woman whose gentle instincts and lovely virtues would have adorned any station. She is said to have been beautiful in her youth, with a face of the brunette type. Her face is brunette, meaning brown, with a dark hair. Because right here is where they're talking about her hair. But right here they're talking about her face, again, brunette, brown, with dark hair, regular features, and soft, sparkling hazel eyes. All right, that's a description of his parents, people of color. On page 64 of this book says, Abe was now in his 15th year and began to exhibit symptoms of gallantry toward the weaker sex. He was growing at a tremendous rate, and 2 years later attained his full height of 6 feet 4 inches. He was long, wiry, and strong, while his big feet and hands and the length of his legs and arms were out of all proportion to his small trunk and head. His complexion was very swarthy, all right, very dark skin, very so-called black, very swarthy. Look up what swarthy means. That means so-called black or Negro, very swarthy. And Miss Gentry says that his skin was shriveled and yellow even then. Again, very swarthy. Can I get a so swarthy? Hashtag so swarthy. Abe Lincoln. On page 304 of this book, we got another description of Lincoln. It says here, Mr. Lincoln spoke in all about 50 times during the campaign. At his close, says Mr. Arnold, both Douglas and Lincoln visited Chicago. Douglas was so hoarse that he could hardly articulate, and it was painful to hear him attempt to speak. Lincoln's voice was clear and vigorous, and he really seemed in better tone than usual. His dark complexion was bronzed by the prairie suns and winds. His eye was clear, his step firm, and he looked like a trained athlete, ready to enter rather than one who had closed the conflict. All right, again, his dark complexion. And page 736 of this book says here, a tribute by John G. Nicole. Says here, President Lincoln was of unusual stature, 6 feet 4 inches, and of a spare but muscular build. He had been in youth remarkably strong and skillful in the athletic games of the frontier, where, however, his popularity and recognized impartiality oftener made him an umpire than a champion. He had regular and prepossessing features, dark complexion, again, dark complexion, broad, high forehead, prominent cheekbones, gray, deep-set eyes, and bushy, black hair, again, bushy, black hair, again, bushy, dark complexion, and bushy, black hair, turning to gray at the time of his death. Can we get a more clear description? Dark complexion, bushy, black hair. Source says the story, Life of Lincoln, a biography composed of 500 true stories told by Abraham Lincoln and his friends. Again, true stories selected from all authentic sources and fitted together in order, forming his complete life history by Wayne Whipple, author of The Story of the White House and Its Home Life, The Minuteman, The Story of Plymouth Rock, etc. Memorial edition. All right, scholarly source here. And this book is from 1908. All right, so we're on page 19 of this book, and right here it talks about Nancy Hanks. Again, that's his mom. It says Lincoln's mother. It says at the time of her marriage to Thomas Lincoln, Nancy was in her 23rd year. She was above the ordinary height and stature, weighed about 130 pounds, was slender built, and had much the appearance of one inclined to consumption. Her skin was dark. Again, dark. Her dark brown eyes, gray and small. Remember, they called her brunette, dark brown, and right here they calling her, saying her skin was dark. So brunette and dark brown, brunette, dark brown, dark. All right, what are we talking about? Copper-colored tribes of America. What are we talking about? An aboriginal here. Eyes gray and small, forehead prominent, face sharp and angular, with a marked expression of melancholy which fixed itself in the memory of everyone who ever saw or knew her. All right, so again, Nancy, his mom, dark skin. We got her already as brunette, dark brown, which means dark brown. All right, that's two sources already. I'm on page 273 of the same book. And down here it says, almost from his opening, words, the speaker assumed an air of superiority, stating his facts in convincingly authoritative tone and belittling his adversary's political pretensions, and generally treating him with such marked condescension that many of Lincoln's friends, watching his dark, homely, careworn face, his dark face, his dark complexion, homely, careworn face, began to fear that he had displayed more courage than wisdom in courting comparison with so brilliant a rival. All right, they're describing him as a dark-faced man. Dark face. All right, we're not done. And we're on page 331 of this same book. And again, we're going to get another source saying the same thing. It says Lincoln's own life story. And again, it's the same autobiography where he says, if any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said I am in height 6 feet 4 inches, nearly lean in flesh, weighing on average 180 pounds, dark complexion. Again, dark complexion. All right, so when they're saying his dark, homely face, they know what they're saying. They don't mean like a dark face, like he's looking dark, like sad or like evil. No, he's dark complexion with coarse black hair and gray eyes. That's from his own words. Yours very truly, A. Lincoln. J. W. Fell Esquire, Recollections of Abraham Lincoln, Ward and Lamon, page 9. We're on page 573 of the same book. All right, and down here it says, is this bloody war ever to end? It says, the morning after the bloody battle of the Wilderness, I saw him walk up and down the executive chamber, his long arms behind his back, his dark features, again, his dark features contracted still more with gloom. As he looked up, I thought his face the saddest one I ever had seen, he exclaimed. All right, so they're talking about Lincoln here, dark features. I'll continue page 579 in the same book. 579 says the president in the streets of the capital, and it says right here, I see very plainly Abraham Lincoln's dark brown face with the deep cut lines. The eyes always look to me with a deep Latin sadness in the expression. Again, Abraham Lincoln, dark brown face, dark brown face. Who is dark brown? Dark brown face again. Look at this image. I'm telling you right now, people. Does this look like a dark brown face to you? Is this a dark complexion face to you? Is this dark features? Dark brown. All right, same book, page 618, chapter 23. Says the end of the war after the inaugural ceremonies. Says here, he was in his plain two-horse barouche and looked very much worn and tired. The lines indeed of vast responsibilities, intricate questions, and demands of life and death cut deeper than even upon his dark brown face. Again, his dark brown face, yet all the old goodness and tenderness, sadness, and canny shrewdness underneath the furrows. All right, so this is, says here from Specimen Days, Walt Whitman. So Walt Whitman actually wrote this a lot. The last reference of him being dark brown is from Walt Whitman as well.
Who was our first black president?
Well, Barack?
Get off the chair. Who was our first black president? Who's our
George
first black
Washington.
president? Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, Abraham Lincoln was a Melungeon.
Wow.
Part black, part white, and part Cherokee Indian.
Wow.
You didn't know that, did you? He was a superhuman human being because he
Melungeon. I
was a
spell
Melungeon.
it.
Melungeon.
And
Melungeon.
oh, there it is.
There it is. What does it
Okay.
say?
It says Melungeon ancestry of Abraham Lincoln. Really learning.
Strange things happen at the
Jay, you
They were shocked, right? So, she's correlating what we're reading so far, right? They're saying that he might have been a so-called ancestry of a so-called African American, right? That he might have been a person of color because he was a Melungeon, right? So what is a Melungeon? We know these are a tribal group of different people who mix, like Europeans with indigenous people, a lot of runaway supposed slaves. We all know these are indentured servants. A lot of these are Europeans, both white and black, and Indians, Aboriginal people who mix with, they're all mixed and became the Melungeons. All right, so we're in this book, The Melungeons, The Last Lost Tribe in America, by Elizabeth Caldwell Hirschman. And in page 89 of this book, it says Abraham Lincoln, that Abraham Lincoln was of Melungeon descent, was first suggested to my knowledge by Brent Kennedy. Kennedy comments that Lincoln's mother, Nancy Hanks, was in all likelihood of Melungeon heritage. Given several facts of her background, indeed, anyone who looks at photographs of Abraham Lincoln is no doubt struck by his distinctively Semitic features. The thick, coarse black hair, but when we look at these images of Abraham Lincoln, I don't see thick, coarse black hair. I see like this, like, a white person's hair, like very straight or, not thick at all. All right, and it says here, the dark skin. What dark skin? The dark skin, dark eyes, prominent nose, and equally prominent cheekbones. So I was quite comfortable with Brent Kennedy's assertion regarding Lincoln's maternal ancestry. So I'm in this book now. It's called Herndon's Lincoln, The True Story of a Great Life. Etiam in Minimus Major, The History and Personal Recollections of Abraham Lincoln by William H. Herndon. For 20 years, his friend and law partner. This was his friend. He knew him, Jesse William Week A.M., Volume 1. And this book is from 1889. And again, remember, we already got Nancy Hanks, his mom being dark-skinned. We're going to get the same thing over here. It says her skin was dark. All right, they're talking about Nancy Hanks, the mother of the president. At a very early age, was taken from her mother, Lucy. At a very early age, was taken from her mother, Lucy. Why? And afterwards married to Henry Sparrow, and then sent to live with her aunt and uncle, Thomas Betsy Sparrow. You see? It's weird. Why was she taken from her mom? Was she an indentured servant, Melungeon, Indian, and descendant? Right? She was what? Her skin is dark. She's dark. His mom is dark. His dad is dark-skinned. He said he's dark-skinned. All right, we're in the book, The Hidden Lincoln, from the letters and papers of William H. Herndon, Emmanuel Hertz. This is from 1940. We're on page 184 of this book. And it says there's a letter here from June 24th, 1887. Mr. Bartlett, my dear sir. Right, they're writing to that person. And it seems by your friend, W.H. Henderson. Right? And he's writing about what Mr. Lincoln looks like. It says, you speak of Mr. Lincoln's fine physical nature. But to see and study the man, you would say that Mr. Lincoln's physical nature was comparatively low, coarse, and not fine and high. He seemed to have no blood in his frame. His flesh was dark. His flesh was dark. Darkness. All right, all this dark. Where's the pale? Again, they keep showing us these white pictures of Abraham Lincoln growing up. Every time we Google Lincoln, every time we try to look for him, even in these books that are describing him as dark complexion, they keep putting a white pale face Lincoln in the cover of the book, even though they're writing his flesh was dark. So why would he be afraid to get lynched? Because his flesh was dark. It says here, wrinkled and folded. It looked dry and leathery, tough and everlasting. His eyes were small and gray, head small and forehead receding. But when this great man was moved by some great or good feeling, by some idea of liberty or justice or right, then he seemed an inspired man. But his flesh was what? Dark. In the same book on page 361, down here says Josh C. Richardson's statement from, it says here, my father came to Spencer County, Indiana in 1828. It says Lincoln was tall, a raw-boned at 18. When 16 years of age, he was 6 feet high. He was so tall, right? He was somewhat bony and raw, dark-skinned. Dark-skinned. What does this mean? Oh, Kurimeo, that means pale. No, dark-skinned. Why do they keep showing us pale-face images of Abraham Lincoln? And we're getting only accounts of him being dark-skinned from everybody. Dark-skinned, dark complexion, dark features, dark face, bronze, dark brown face, dark brown complexion, dark skin. He was quick and moved with energy. He never idled away his time. All right, so they're describing him here. We're going to get one more in this book on page 412. We get down here, Lincoln, the individual. It is now the time to describe the person, Mr. Lincoln. He was about 6 feet 4 inches high, and when he left the city, was 51 years old, having good health and no gray hairs or but few on his head. He was thin, wiry, sinewy, I don't know how to say that, raw and big, heavy boned, thin through the breast to the back and narrow across the shoulders. Standing, he leaned forward and was what may be called stoop-shouldered, inclining to the consumptively built, his usual weight being about 160 or 80 pounds. His organization, rather his structure and functions, worked slowly. His blood had to run a long distance from his heart to the extremities of his frame. He was so long, right? His bones were long, he was tall, and his nerve force had to travel through dry ground a long distance before his muscles were obedient to his will. His organisms and structure were loose and leathery. His body was well shrunk, cadaverous, and shriveled, having very dark skin. Very dark skin. We're adding an adjective to this. We're not just saying he's dark skinned, he's very dark skinned. We're not talking about a tan, we're not talking about some pale faced dude who might have look a little Semitic. No, he is very dark skinned. They're describing the individual. They told you in the beginning of this. Say, let's get to his character. He is very dark skinned, dry and tough, wrinkled and lined, somewhat in flabby folds, dark hair, the man looking woe-struck. The whole man, body and mind, worked slowly, creakingly, and as if it needed oiling. Physically, he was very powerful man, lifting, as he said, with ease, 400 or 600 pounds. He was mad strong. You see, Abraham Lincoln was mad strong. He was just a little scrawny and bony and weird looking, but he was really strong. His mind was like his body, and blood worked slowly, but his body and mind functioned strongly through his blood and move slowly. All right, so again, having what? Very dark skin. A very dark skin. Now, it's called The Life of Abraham Lincoln, drawn from original sources and containing many speeches, letters, and telegrams. Hitherto unpublished by Ida M. Tarbell, Volume 1. This is from 1900. On page 360 of this book, it says, they noted his great height, his huge hands and feet, his peculiar languidness of limb. His shoulders drooped as he stood, giving his form a look of irresolution. His smooth-shaven face seemed of bronze as he listened to their message and amazed them by its ruggedness. The cheeks were sunken, the cheekbones high, the nose large, the mouth unsymmetrical, the underlip protruding a little. All right, so he's what? His face is what? Bronze, a bronze face. It says here the Lincoln Encyclopedia. All right, this is the Lincoln Encyclopedia, the spoken and written words of Abraham Lincoln, from his own words, people. All right, an encyclopedia of his own words, arranged for ready reference, compiled and edited by Archer H. Shaw, with introduction by David C. Mearns, assistant librarian from the Library of Congress. This is from 1950. And we're on page 190 of this book, of this encyclopedia, right? All right, so we're zoomed in to page 190, and it says here, the personal description of Abraham Lincoln, his own personal descriptions, right? We're in encyclopedia, Library of Congress. Pay attention, people. It says, perhaps you have forgotten me. Don't you remember a long black fellow who rode on horseback with you from Tremont to Springfield nearly 10 years ago, swimming our horses over the Machina on the trip? Well, I am that same old fellow. All right, so that was Abraham Lincoln writing to somebody, to Josephus Hewitt, on February 13th, 1848, saying, do you remember, man? I'm the black dude. I'm the black fellow. Got another one here. Again, we have this already. Just want to verify. We got it from a different source and a verifiable source, right? It says, if any personal description of me is thought desirable, it may be said that I am in height 6 feet 4 inches, nearly lean in flesh, weighing an average 180 pounds, dark complexion. All right, again, dark complexion with coarse black hair and dark eyes. No other marks or brands recollected. Remember what that meant? That meant he was making fun that he used to be a slave and he ran away. He did it like an ad. All right, so now we finally get to this. I just wanted to show you all the different references. Now we're going to get the actual original autobiography of Abraham Lincoln. And again, they're going to put a pale-faced guy here. All right, but let me just zoom in so you can see. This is issued by the Americanization Department, Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States, reproduced with the permission of the heirs and descendants of Jesse W. Fell. All right, and again, this is the autobiography of Abraham Lincoln. I was born February 12, 1809. This is a collection of the Lincoln financial Foundation collection, and this is very hard to read. All right, but I've already read it to you. This is the same one that we kept seeing where he's describing himself as dark complexion. So I just wanted you to see that this is real. This is right here. So again, this is the autobiography of Abraham Lincoln, where he states he is of dark complexion. All right, so I'm going to try to outline where I see it again so you can see. So dark complexion right here. Let me circle it. Do you see that in green over here to the right? Dark complexion, right? These are the two things right here. See the two things I'm circling? Dark complexion. Abraham Lincoln writing about himself with coarse black hair. Dark complexion. Right over here. And right over here, dark complexion. Authorized or notarized by David Davis. And who was David Davis? An American politician, a close associate of Abraham Lincoln. He was Supreme Court Justice and Senator during the antebellum American Civil Wars, post-wars. David Davis, United States jurist and politician. He's the one that verified this. He's the one that signed right here. David Davis. This is Abraham Lincoln's, again, Auto-Biography. And this is the book, Dear Mr. Lincoln, Letters to the President, edited by Harold Holzer. It says here, vile threats to the black, the N-word, February 14, 1861. Sir, Mr. Abe Lincoln, if you don't resign, we're going to put a spider in your dumpling and play the devil with you. God almighty, goddamn subtle or of a itch, go to, and suck my, call my bollocks, you uncle, goddamn fool, and goddamn Abe Lincoln, who will like you, goddamn you. Excuse me for using such hard words with your, but you need it. You are nothing but a goddamn black, the N-word. Yours and Mr. A.G. Frick, Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, and Arkansas is going to succeed. Glory be to God on high. It says this letter, never before published in this entirely, was discovered in the files of the Chicago Historical Society. The Chicago Historical Society is holding this. Somebody calling him a black, the N-word. All right? Here says the great lengths taken to make Abraham Lincoln look good in portraits. What? One famous image of the president features a body that isn't his. That's not Abraham Lincoln, people. Look at this. That's the dude, the photographer. Brady. Remember, he created the images. Look at the checkered floor, the Freemasonic floor. This is not Lincoln. They just told you right there, it's not him. That's not his body. Body snatchers. Remember, print of Lincoln versus print of Calhoun engraven. Photos, left Library of Congress. It says Abraham Lincoln had a problem during the 1860 campaign as a Republican candidate for the American presidency in an era after the birth of photograph, but before its widespread dissemination in the media, many of the country's citizens could only guess at what he looked like. They didn't know what he looked like. You see what I'm trying to tell you here, what I'm showing you here? In general, remember, this is not no internet, no social media, nothing going around where people can be like, yeah, I saw Abraham Lincoln, I know what he looks like. Only photographs, images. They were creating icons. Remember, iconoclasm, icons. Though the rumors of Lincoln's ugliness stayed mostly within Democratic circles, Lincoln was not anxious to let the idea spread. So he turned to Matthew Brady, a well-known photographer with a studio on Pennsylvania Avenue. In many ways, Brady was perfect. Though Brady himself had bad vision and did not take many of his own photos, he conceptualized image, arranged the sitters, and oversaw the production of pictures. He conceptualized images. His photographer conceptualized Abraham Lincoln's images. All right? What are we hearing here? Plus, according to the New York Times, Brady was not averse to certain forms of retouching. He retouched Abraham Lincoln's images. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Showing you guys here, right? Are you understanding? Look at this. That's not Abraham Lincoln is what I'm letting you know. Dodge the hijack. This is propaganda. This is how they do us today with marketing and media and all that. Whitewashing, right? Whitewashing. Dodge the hijack. Wake up.